My journey didn't really start until like the end of university. When I started my final year, I barely slept over the summer while doing an internship, and I basically couldn't think. I was depressed, I was anxious, having panic attacks. This was like the first time I ever paid attention to myself. Before that, I was completely devoted to academics and sports, hanging out with friends. That was my entire life. My whole self-worth was wrapped up in doing those things. At the end of university, the story that I suppose I've been telling myself of having the dream job, buying a house, having kids, that whole cliche story, the whole thing fell apart. The existential crisis that we see people having in their 50s, that was like me at the end of university. I basically started from scratch. I was seeing a psychologist at the time, and that taught me about like the relationship between my thoughts, feelings, and actions. Like I didn't realize that how I was seeing the world was caused through my own thinking. So I took on the project to understand my own suffering, like how I got here, and like what is happiness. So I studied like psychology, philosophy, and spirituality, and I was interested in like the integration and all of these things. Like if one perspective, or if I had multiple perspectives that all made sense, then I could find a perspective that connected them all. And that became like my way of being, my way of kind of discovering what's true. I applied this to my health and started walking my own path. At the time, I was still following the thoughts that I was having about needing an engineering job, needing to do well. And even though these thoughts never felt good, they felt like I had to do it. Like I was convinced that I should keep doing these things, but I kept finding myself in the same place, like feeling stuck and miserable. At one point, I like left my job, and with my partner, we went traveling to Europe for 6 months, and I hiked the Camino, 800-kilometer trek across Spain. And like for most people, you'd think like 6 months in Europe would feel great. But I felt miserable because I was running away from my life. And I thought that leaving my job and doing the opposite of what didn't feel good would feel good. And I got to the end of this trip like emotionally exhausted and realized that trying to find happiness outside of myself was like never gonna work. So I realized that joy was something that I had to define for myself. Like no one else could do that for me, even though others would suggest and convince and project onto me what they thought was good. It wasn't until I started looking at myself and asking like, what do I actually desire out of life? I started to dream. Like I dreamed big about the possibilities of like work and money and relationships and travel and like freedom, like true freedom. And the moment I started doing that, life started to change because I was no longer living someone else's story, like no longer caring about having an engineering job and doing well in that, and more about living a great expansive life, like purpose and joy, like truly. And from that moment, I started walking my own path towards embodiment. I realized like I was chronically fatigued at the time. So I got into cleansing and detoxing. I bought a water filter. I built my own sauna. I tried parasite cleansers, like heavy metal detoxing protocols. And slowly but surely, like I started to feel better in my body, like better than I'd ever felt before, because I didn't realize like I'd been from decades of not really caring about how I treated myself. Like my body was kind of out of whack. And just by doing these protocols, like I started to feel like more attuned to myself. I was more sensitive to the foods and things I had in my life, like what like products like or chemicals, toxins I was exposing myself to. And over time, I just started feeling more. And then I recognized that what I thought was like chronic, like low energy as a result of like my physical health was actually just like a lot of it was the suppressed emotions. Like I didn't learn how to feel. Like I didn't grow up learning how to feel my emotions. So I learned how to feel my emotions, and through like somatics in my body, my mind and body started to come together. I've realized that when my mind was spinning, trying to figure out what was like wrong with life, it was actually just like this feeling of like lacking safety. And when I started feeling into my body, and my mind and body kind of like came together, I realized that like health, well-being, it's this whole like unified process, that there's no separation between my thoughts and feelings and what gets created out into the world. And like as a result of that journey, like I realized I want to be a coach. I want to support and help and guide other beings, because like health, it's one of these things that we don't think it's possible. We don't realize there's something true about it, that there's a place you can get to where you just feel good all the time. And through my journey, I discovered that health is a natural state of being. Like it's not something that's out of reach, and everyone can do it. And there's a whole bunch of obstacles like in our way. Like we have a lot of ignorance, a lot of conditioning. We're focusing on just surviving our lives and focusing on what we think will make us feel good. And when all that kind of gets cleared out the way, we realize like everything we search for in life, like that feeling that we would get from being successful, it's actually just like a feeling in the body here and now that we choose. Like happiness is something we decide here and now. So like cleansing has been like a massive process, with bringing me back to myself, and then realizing I am the source of my own well-being. So that's how I ended up as here, like as a health coach at Cleanse Club. And I look forward to serving you on your journey with us.